Hey everyone, welcome to Gadgets with Gurman. I'm Mark, and if you've been following along on my Twitter and our coverage, and even our Gadgets with Gurman episode yesterday, we had the Big Apple event. It was the Big Apple Let's Meet at Our Place event. You can see behind me, there's a picture of Face ID. That's the new iPhone unlock feature in lieu of Touch ID. Lots and lots of announcements from Apple yesterday, ranging from the iPhone 10, the 8, the 8 Plus, the Apple TV with 4K video streaming, the Apple Watch Series 3 with LTE, all sorts of stuff. So I figured today would be a great day to answer lots of questions. I've been getting lots of tweets and Facebook messages from you all on the Gadgets with Gurman page, asking about the iPhone 10, asking all sorts of stuff. So why don't we just do this live? So if everyone could please send in your questions through Twitter, through Facebook, and I'll answer them throughout the show. I already collected a bunch of questions that came in on Twitter already earlier today about the iPhone 10. And the first question is about Face ID, and you can see behind me, this is a picture of Face ID. So the first question I got, does Face ID work in the dark? Yes, so there's actually an infrared sensor you can see at the top, and that infrared sensor, what it does is it basically shoots light at your face, and it's an invisible light, the same type of light that you get when blasting a remote control to a TV, and it shines an invisible light on your face, so this Face ID feature can work in all climates, whether it's light or dark or dawn or dusk. Does it work with sunglasses? You know, that's a good question. There's actually a cool page here on the Apple website that I saw that sort of goes through the Face ID feature and shows you that it works with all sorts of different wardrobes and whatnot. So if you look at the screen behind me, it shows a little bit of how the technology works. And this is the graphic I'm talking about. It's a GIF here. And you can see a person transforming from a beard, wearing a hat, wearing a scarf and all that. It works with that, but I didn't see anyone wearing sunglasses there in that picture actually, and I wasn't wearing sunglasses to the event yesterday, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to test that out. But I actually was able to test out Face ID, and I actually have a video of it. So let's zoom into the monitor here, and I want to show you this part of the video where I'm actually setting up Face ID. Let me zoom into that. And you can see a little bit of Face ID. So what this is showing is the Mint app, the 1Password app, all sorts of apps that people typically use on the iPhone with a Touch ID passcode, instead using it with the face. And in a second here, I'm actually setting it up. And I think I'm the first person to have set up Face ID outside of Apple. So you can see here the Apple employees putting in their passcode, asking to turn the camera away from that in order to start the Face ID process. You put your passcode in, and this is how you would enroll a face. So you click enroll, and this is the interface here, and you can see you just tilt your head around, and that's me. Hi everyone. You tilt your head around twice, and it stores your face, and it actually works very quickly, as you'll see in a second. And I encourage you to check out this full 20-minute or so hands-on video with the iPhone 10 yesterday on the new Gadgets with Gurman Facebook page. Okay, you can see my face is enrolled there instead of the fingerprint. You're locking the phone, and you can see the lock thing unlocked there, and that means I can swipe up now in order to just enter the phone. Now you can see the process there happening right now. Okay, you can see it unlocked on top, right? And then all I have to do is swipe up to get in there. Now, more questions coming through. Do the new iPhones have stereo speakers like the iPhone 7? Yes, so they do have stereo speakers. I'm going to exit this. We'll go back to the iPhone page. Now the stereo speakers, basically to answer that question, on the iPhone 7, Apple added a secondary speaker, not only on the bottom, but in the earpiece as well. It goes louder. And so yes, this top portion of the phone is still a speaker. And let's zoom out here while we take more questions. And on the iPhone 8, Apple said that it's louder. I believe they said it was 25% louder or 50% louder than the stereo speaker on the 7 and 7 Plus. I'm certain that would come to the iPhone 10 as well, the louder speaker. I'm not sure why it wouldn't. Another question coming in here, why is a swipe required to get to the home screen on the iPhone 10 after Face Unlock? So we're on this lock image. Good, so you can see that's the big lock icon. I saw a few people on Twitter saying that it's so big, I wish they made it smaller. It looked a little big in person as well, not only in the pictures. So it's sort of an ambient technology, so it's always scanning your face to see if your face is there, and it actually knows where your eyes are in the picture when it gets that first facial scan. So it looks for your eyes you're looking at. If you're looking away from it, it won't unlock, only if you're looking for it. And another person asked, what about if it's on a table? Well, if it's on a table, you just would look down on it, and then it would be able to see you and it would know. And it requires a swipe just as an extra precaution, because you hold down your fingerprint, it's like opening the home button to get in. Now you just swipe up, sort of like the old swipe to unlock type of feature. What's with the no gold option on the iPhone 10? Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually curious about that. So for those asking, what's with gold? So you can see when you go to the iPhone 10 order page, and by the way, it's 10, not X, for those who are wondering. Finish, you can see there's the silver and then there's a space gray. Let's zoom in on here to take a closer look at the two color options. You can see there's a silver and a space gray. Usually I go for the black models, whatever the space gray, they called it slate one year. But the silver and white one actually looks really nice this year. It's a hard decision. I'll probably still go with the space gray and black. But anyways, no gold color option. We know they were working on a gold version of this. There were so many casing leaks for a gold iPhone 10. What it seems like to me is that the iPhone 10 is so difficult to produce that they really had to pick their battles here. And they decided they're going to go with the two colors that people most want. And they're not going to work on a gold color that's traditionally very low in supply. If you remember, every time they come out with the gold iPhone, starting with the Gold 5S, finding one on launch day or even in the first 3 months of being on sale was a difficult task. And I know we're talking about phone colors here, but it's pretty obvious that Apple apparently decided to save their battles and not do a gold version at the start, even though there is a gold iPhone 8. This phone is difficult to produce as is. My bet, they add that gold color later as sort of a mid-cycle refresh, just like they added the red iPhone 7 in the middle of 2000 and earlier this year in the middle of 2017 to sort of spice up the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus line ahead of the 8 and the 10. Let's zoom back out here while we're getting some more questions. Now, we have a lot of people asking, what's with no Dolby Atmos support on the 4K Apple TV? I have the 4K Apple TV page open here, and if you go to the tech specs on models and pricing, it goes over the audio technologies. And you can see the audio, audio formats. Dolby Atmos is not on there. So Dolby Atmos is an audio technology that sounds a bit crisper, more high definition compared to Dolby Plus 7.1 surround sound. So people are asking, could they add that in a software update? Theoretically, probably, but it doesn't look like it's going to be there in the beginning. There is the HDR and the 4K, obviously, to start with. Another question coming in here. What are the differences between the Series 2 and Series 3 Apple Watches other than cellular? Okay, we're here on the Series 3 page, so you can get a look at what we're talking about for those unfamiliar. Now, there's a few differences. So the LTE obviously is the big difference on the LTE models for the Apple Watch Series 3. But there are some key differences between the Series 3 GPS, so the Series 3 without the cellular chip, and the Series 2, which, by the way, they discontinued. So one is the Qi support, the wireless charging support. And what that will allow you to do is lay it on the AirPower mat that Apple's working on. I'll show you that on the iPhone 10 page here. So let's go to that. And so the Series 3 non-cellular, in addition to the cellular one, over the Series 2 has wireless charging support, so you can put it, whenever Apple chooses to release it, the watch on the AirPower mat right here. And other features, faster Wi-Fi and Bluetooth with the new W2 chip, sort of an iteration of the W1 and the AirPods from last year. Elevation tracking with the barometer, and it's cheaper. And the back is ceramic only on the Series 3 LTE, no matter the casing you get, whether it's the ceramic casing, the stainless steel casing, or the iPhone-like aluminum casing. And this brings me to another question. A lot of people have been asking me about these AirPods. So you saw in the leak that there are a new version of AirPods. They're called the AirPods 1,2. Now the difference is not with the headphones, but the case itself. This is a new wireless charging case that is compatible with the AirPower mat, again, when Apple chooses to release that next year. Now, when are the AirPod wireless charging cases with Qi support coming out? I've been getting a lot of questions on that. Those are also coming out 2018. If you look at some of the fine print, some of the Apple ads and web pages about the launch yesterday, you'll see that written there. More questions coming in here. Do you think that because of the delayed launch, stock will be on par with previous year and high demand of previous years? Yeah, that's a very good question. I personally think that Apple could have probably released the iPhone 10 alongside the 8 when they choose to do that on September 22nd, but in very small quantities. I'm talking about only available in one of the two colors, walking into an Apple store and only having a couple of them, basically it being a disaster, quote unquote, for people who really want to get their hands on an iPhone 10. So Apple probably said, you know what, let's wait till November 3rd, let's wait till October 27th pre-orders, and let's try to have a little bit more supply when we're launching this. Because in reality, you're comparing the iPhone 8 Plus to the iPhone 10. There's a lot of people who want the iPhone 10 instead of the 8 Plus, and Apple recognizes that. So I think they're trying to strike a balance here. When's the earliest they can do this with having enough supply to meet a high demand, or not, or enough supply not to upset a lot of people? A lot of more questions coming in here, and please keep sending them on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and all that. What do you think about the Apple Pay experience with Face ID? Okay, so let me show you. I think there's a demo on Apple's website about how they do that. If not, I will explain. Let's see here. But basically, they're using Face ID instead of Touch ID for Apple Pay. Okay, you can see the demo here. And the way it works is, let's see if we have it here. Okay, so basically, okay, they don't have it here. But you see there's this new side button right here, this larger side button. You can see right there. The way it works is you put it next to the NFC reader, the terminal, wherever you're shopping, Walgreens or wherever. You double click it, it scans your face if you're looking at it, and then it lets you through. So you're using that double click on the bigger side button to sort of confirm that. And the side button is also used for activating Siri, for those wondering. Okay, another question. Why isn't Apple using an LTE antenna like the iPhone, like they are putting in the Series 3? That's a good question. So this question is basically asking, why are they putting an LTE antenna in the stainless steel band that goes around the phone that you can see here versus putting it in the screen like with the Apple Watch? I think it basically comes down to space. They needed to get an antenna if they wanted to do LTE on the Apple Watch. The only place they could have put it was in the screen. It's sort of similar because they sort of have it around the screen on the 10, and of course the 8 and 8 Plus in previous models. Can third-party music apps stream to Apple Watch? I think that mostly depends on if Spotify wants to open that functionality. Right now, you can control music playback if you're syncing from the phone. It's going to be very interesting to see if Spotify, Pandora, and those competitors open up to the Apple Watch more than they have already. How do you turn off the device now? That's a good question. So how do you turn off a device if the power button is turned into a side button that you're using for Siri, for Apple Pay, and some other functions? Well, there's now in the settings menu in iOS 11, if you've been running this, you go deep into the settings menu and there's a shutdown button as well as a reset button. So it's sort of a software-based mechanism now. I'm sure there's some configuration of buttons you can tap in order to do those actions like powering off. We'll have to find out. People are asking, what about screenshots? Yeah, that's a good question. People like taking screenshots. In fact, they've added a new screenshot mechanism to iOS 11 in order to quickly share and crop screenshots. So you select the volume up button as well as the side button to do a screenshot. Does the 10 come with headphones? Yeah, that's a good question. I believe I saw it comes with the AirPods with Lightning. Why don't we go to their webpage? Yep, okay, so it comes with the AirPods with Lightning connector, and it comes with the USB power adapter. Now, while we're here, I do have a few things to say about this. So, first of all, for such a high-priced, iPhone here, over $1,000, it could have been nice if Apple would choose to bundle the AirPods with it to help offset the cost. Maybe they realize that anyone who's willing to spend that much money on an iPhone would probably be willing to spend even more money to add the AirPods into it, and then the Air Power Mat on top of it, and an Apple Watch on top of that. Another thing here, Lightning to USB cable. I don't understand why they're not shipping Lightning to USB-C cables when they're trying to emphasize this faster wireless charging functionality that goes about 50% faster than charging today. You need a USB-C to Lightning connector in order to do that, because the power adapter that also you have to buy extra, and I saw it's about $75 if you want to enable fast charging on the phone, in addition to having to wait for a software update, because you need both a USB-C cable and a higher power iPad power adapter with a higher wattage, and neither of those come with the iPhone 10 in the box. It's a bit strange of a move to me. I sort of understand it, but I sort of don't, given that people who are probably going toward the iPhone 10 would already have devices and computers that are compatible with USB-C rather than this classic USB 2.0 over here, USB-A. There is still the Lightning to 3.5mm headphone jack adapter in the box if you want to hook up headphones from Bose or whatever Sony that aren't Lightning compatible. More questions coming in here. Are the speakers the same on the 10 and the 8? From what I've seen, yes, it's the same. What is the camera bump like? It's the same. The camera bump, you can see, let's see, there's more images here on the overview. But the camera bump is basically the same. In terms of the camera's physical design externally, in terms of industrial design on the back, yeah, you can see the bump there. In terms of that, it's the same. The only difference is basically the vertical alignment, and it's sort of smoothed differently. It's not it's not as flush as it was before. They're sort of going back to what an iPhone 7 with the dual camera in the back would look like if it used the iPhone 6 design. You know what I mean? It's not flush. They're sort of emphasizing it. and it does add dual optical image stabilization on both lenses, so maybe they had to do that to integrate that technology. How does a screenshot on the iPhone 10 look like? Does it follow the shape of the screen? I've actually seen both. I've seen some that follow the shape of the screen, and I've seen others that don't. I personally think it won't, because the stuff behind the notch at the top, they have a clever marketing name for it, but the stuff behind, I think they call it the true depth sensor, the true depth area. Well, the stuff behind there, it's still there. It's just not visible physically. So I think perhaps screenshots will probably come in at that full resolution. Are you worried about the facial recognition camera being made available to third-party development? No, I'm not worried about it. The thing you should worry about is if there wasn't sandboxing. So right now, Apple does a good job of sandboxing, which means that features of the iPhone, hardware features tied to specific apps, can only work in certain scenarios. It's no different than the fingerprint sensor being open to third-party applications. It's actually, I think this is a good thing that they're opening up Face ID to developers so early, because if you remember, Touch ID on the iPhone 5S, so that was released in September 2013, and they didn't actually ship developer support for that until iOS 8 a year later in September of 2014. So that's a whole year we normally wouldn't have to wait to get software and third-party App Store integration with a key new iPhone hardware element. Some more questions coming in here. What is the most disappointing thing in the new phone, in my opinion? Now, I don't know if this is going to be the opinion of many, but in my opinion, the most disappointing part about this phone, and I will show you a picture of it right here, is that it does not have the iPhone 7 Plus or 8 Plus's user interface. That's a big thing I use. The iPhone 8 Plus, the 7 Plus, and the 6 Plus, they have this landscape interface where you can turn the phone and you sort of get an iPad-like UI with more optimized folders for the bigger screen. You can swipe through the home screen in landscape. You get more controls like cut, copy, and paste on the keyboard when you're in the Notes app or a word processing application. You get a split view in Messages, a split view in email. You get Safari tabs that you're able to scroll through just like you are in the browser. You can see on top like Chrome here. That's on landscape mode on the 6, 7, and 8 iPhone Plus models. It's not happening on this one. It's unfortunate because on paper, the screen on the iPhone 10 is actually bigger than the screen on the iPhone Plus models that exist now and have come before it. So why did they do this? Because even though the screen on the diagonal is 5.8 inches, which is up from 5.5 on the Pluses, on the bottom axis, it's actually as narrow as the non-Plus models, so they had to make that compromise. I hope really that they come out with a bigger iPhone 10-like design next year in order to incorporate all of that. I think that would be a really popular phone. Certainly it would be something that would appeal to me and other business users. Another question, do you really think it's worth the price tag? You know, that's hard to say. $1,000 for some people is a month's worth of groceries. It's a big portion of someone's salary. I saw people saying that they bought their first car for the amount of money that this iPhone 10 costs. But if you look at it in terms of a comparison to the other models, it's a very minor step up. So if you're trying to get an iPhone 8 Plus and you're comparing that to an iPhone 10, it's honestly between $5 and $8, even $10 max a month difference between those two phones. So if you're not looking at comparisons, yes, $1,000 is a lot of money for anyone. It's a lot of money for a phone. But if you're comparing from another iPhone, a new iPhone model, to an iPhone 10, it's not that big of a jump. It's up to you if you want to spend that money, but I think that the installment plans between 18, 24, and 30 months do make it a little bit easier on the consumer, but I'm not going to tell anyone that $1,000 for a phone is not a very difficult to swallow. More coming in here. Can police unlock your phone now with Face ID? I'm not going to give you an official legal answer. I saw a lot of legal documents and people chiming in about this online. The debate is a police officer can't make you open a phone with your fingerprint with Touch ID, but they can have you enter a passcode. The question is, where does your facial structure, a face unlock type of feature, come into play here? I'm going to recommend that anyone who's interested in that look up their local laws on a state-by-state and a country-by-country basis in order to get the best answer possible on this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people talking about that in the coming weeks and months when this thing finally ships in November. So I think you should all, if you're curious and concerned about that, should take a closer look on online legal and government websites. More questions coming in here. Why did they go from 8 to 10? What about the iPhone 9? Well, I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying because 7, 8, 9. I know that's a funny and corny joke, but why did they do that? Well, two reasons. Well, believe it or not, the iPhone is the most important product in the technology world right now. It might be the most popular consumer technology gadget ever to exist in the modern day. And this is the 10th anniversary. The 10th anniversary of anything is always a big deal, whether it's your 10th birthday, your 10th anniversary of your wedding, but the 10th anniversary for a major piece of technology. And Apple is, sometimes a company that's going to look back and commemorate. And the 10th anniversary of the most important product is worth commemorating. So I think calling it iPhone 10 is a direct correlation to the product's 10th anniversary. It makes total sense to me and clearly total sense to Apple and people who know the company well. And on top of that, it shows a big leap going from the iPhone 8 to the iPhone 10. If they came out with the 8 and 9 at the same time, that wouldn't represent that phone as such a big leap, whereas 8 to 10 is a big leap. And remember, the 10 is also representative in terms of software and other hardware products as a big new milestone. I've seen companies jump from 4 to 10. If you're an app developer and you're moving from version 1.0 to 10.0, I've seen that too, because people use the number 10 to signify a big leap in technology and big improvements. So the iPhone 10 name makes total sense to me. They've used the Roman numeral to represent many times in their history, from Final Cut Pro 10, which some call Final Cut Pro X, from Mac OS X, which is really Mac OS 10. So it makes total sense to me. I'm sure you'll see some people call it both, but iPhone 10 it is. One more question coming in here, and this will be our last one. It seems the notch with the whole Face ID system could have been put on the 8 too. Why not include it on the 8 if they're so confident with it instead of Touch ID? That's a good question, and it comes down to this. It's a big differentiator having Face ID instead of Touch ID. It's a new level of convenience. It was certainly faster for me than using Touch ID. It's really nice, it's ambient, it's a higher end feature. It's more expensive to have that camera system in. If they brought it to both phones, it really wouldn't be as much of a difference between the 8 and the 10. The Face ID just adds to this being a more premium version of the iPhone over the 8. But I'm sure that just like Touch ID moved from all iPhones to other Apple products, going to the Mac, to the iPad, to over time, we'll see Face ID move to more and more products in Apple's portfolio. This was Gadgets with Gurman. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned for our next episode. Check out our new Gadgets with Gurman Facebook page, and stay tuned for more coverage on the iPhone 10, the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, and all the other new Apple products. Thank you so much.